Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special episode of the Microbrew podcast. My name is JR Radcliffe with the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and I am joined by my friend and colleague, Curt Hogg of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. We have just witnessed a zany Game 2 of this National League wildcard series between the Brewers and the Mets. We are still recovering. It is late. It is Thursday morning, the day that the Brewers and Mets will play again in a tiebreaker. We just witnessed a wild game in which Jackson Chourio hit 2 homers. Garrett Mitchell hit a go-ahead homer with 2 outs in the 8th. Brewers win 5-3. I don't even know remotely where to begin, Curt Hogg, but I do know that Jackson Chourio is a superstar and always has been in our minds. For those who have watched the Brewers, I'm sure that's true. National people know now, too. What he did on Wednesday was truly remarkable. 2 opposite field home runs, tied the game both times. Babe Ruth is getting mentioned in the same breath as him, statistically speaking.
Just normal 20-year-old stuff.
Normal 20-year-old stuff. What was the stat? First player to hit 2 homers that either tied or gave the team the lead in a playoff game since 1928, Babe Ruth in the World Series. Does that sound right to you? Something like that, right?
Sure.
Let's go with it. Even if it's wrong, Babe Ruth, Jackson Chourio, it's probably a class of 2 in some way, shape, or form. He's incredible, Curt. I don't know how we talk about him anymore because we've been saying this. It's cool that the national world knows, but he's like immune to whatever goes on with the Brewers when they get in these situations, when they fall behind. When things go wrong, they don't go wrong for him. He is
it's not lost on me, JR, that the heroes in this playoffs, aka the only ones doing anything, have been immune to the previous faults of Brewers playoff past, which is really what makes this night so special and so incredible. I mean, it's like you got to wrap your mind around the fact these guys got to come out and play another game tomorrow, and like I think that's almost harder for the Brewers to do than the Mets. Like the Mets, you flush this one and you move on. The Brewers are coming off this absolute high. You got to play it again tomorrow, but again, that's sort of where you don't worry about Jackson Chourio because he's immune to so many of the normal things that you worry about with a human being, with a 20-year-old kid. It's incredible that to have a player in front of you that you're watching in real time at his age, and you just know something's going to happen. I mean, Freddy Peralta in the story we had on Monday on the website about the moment that everyone knew Chourio was kind of the guy. He was special. And Freddie said, well, yeah, he's had a great year, but the moment hasn't happened yet.
I think it did.
It's happened now. I did not think the Brewers were going to win this game. It just felt like a lot of things were going against them. But then all of a sudden, JR, when Jackson Chourio strolled to the plate in the 8th inning, something felt different. Like he was going to do something, and he sure as heck did. And it's like another part of it is in these moments, you can see the insane talent coming out. I mean, that's kind of obvious, right? But like, he's just doing things that aren't normal. Like it's not a 370-foot pull side homer. It's taking a fastball and just whipping it the other way at 105 off the bat, like 400 feet. That doesn't happen. I mean, like it does not happen. So yeah, just crazy stuff.
The second home run that you're talking about, the hit off the facade. I mean, that's with the velocity of a pull hitter just crushing a ball over that sort of party area. That just doesn't happen from right-handers. Not at that speed, not at that angle. The bat speed is so otherworldly from him. And I think it's fun. There's kind of this funny connection. We talked about how Juan Soto is a guy that you might connect him to as somebody who came up at such a young age and contributed right away and sort of told you right away how much of a star he could be and ended up becoming. Juan Soto is also inextricably linked in Brewers playoff history as having the hit in the last time the Brewers played in a winner-take-all playoff game like they're about to do on Thursday night against the Mets at 6 o'clock at American Family Field. Soto had that hit, and he's bounced around to a couple teams now, and his tendrils are kind of all over the playoffs because he's here with the Yankees, and the Padres have really benefited from trading him. But like, it really feels like the Brewers have found Juan Soto or somebody like him with the capability of playing really good outfield on top of it. We talked about the catch. He had a miscue in game 1-2 right after making what I think is a home run saving catch. But he's really the whole package. I mean, he came down with the last out on top of everything else on Wednesday night. It was a routine fly ball off the bat of Jesse Winker, old friend. We'll talk about him, but he really does everything. And at the same time, this game doesn't happen. The win doesn't happen without Garrett Mitchell's home run. That's a two-run home run. Willie Adames battles through an at bat to get on base with a sharp single against Phil Maton, who really struggled. And then Garrett Mitchell, first pitch, drives one over the wall. It was his first at-bat of the game. He had checked in as a pinch runner. That did not go well. He was thrown out stealing. But then his first at-bat of the game, he gets an opportunity, and he delivers too. Garrett Mitchell is interesting in his own right. He wasn't on last year's playoff roster, left off because Jesse Winker was given one of those final spots. We'll talk more about him, as I just said. But this is a really cool arc for Garrett Mitchell, too. They're if you remember going back when he was coming back from injury midway through the season, we were not positive what his role was going to be on this team. We weren't sure there was a spot for him, which I don't think the Brewers saw it that way. Now, of course, there's a spot there. They need everything they can get from Garrett Mitchell, but that was, it's not been an easy year for him. And so he comes through with a really big spot too. He's one of their better hitters, but I did not see that coming. I didn't expect that from Garrett Mitchell. He might qualify as the rando you need to step up and have a really big hit, even though I think he's probably a little better than that.
Well, he's in your top 4. Look, we talked about it. Bryce Terang, by the way, has been spectacular.
What a series!
So I don't want to call him the rando that's stepping up, but probably nationally, he absolutely is the rando that's stepping up. Like, if you're a Mets fan, you're like, who is beating us? The reincarnation of like he's the reincarnation of Harrison Bader, but he plays second base. Like, that is the level of annoyance that I feel like other teams' fans would have with Bryce Terang being the one to beat them with. And it's a different like profile too. But anyway, the offense was like we said, it was like 3.5 guys. Mitchell being the half because you don't really know exactly. It could be great, could be terrible. And guess what? Phil Maton threw him a curveball.
Oops.
My buddy. Like, we were joking kind of before game 1, like, hey, yeah, maybe Garrett Mitchell, like maybe the Mets just skip him on the scouting report. Maybe they just throw a bunch of breaking balls. And they kind of did that a little bit in game 1. Like, there were some pitches that he missed from Severino. And sure enough, starting him off with a get me over curve, like, that's not a good plan. He's gonna he has the raw strength to just muscle that thing out. Like, you saw the swing. It wasn't like a particularly like majestic swing. But like off the bat live, I thought it was gone. And sure was. So yeah, they're getting nothing. I shouldn't say nothing. Willie Adames was the go-ahead run, was the winning run for his single. He had done nothing to that point. William Contreras he had an RBI hit in game 1, but like those two have done minimal production from those two. And so that because of that, you need Garrett Mitchell to step up, and sure enough, he has, because there's just other guys that you're not sure it's how if you're going to get anything on any given night from them.
Yeah, at the same time, you're right. The Brewers probably have more in the tank from their veterans. At the same time, Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso haven't done a whole lot for the Mets either. Alonso grounded into a double play, would have scored a run, but he tripped on his bat coming out of the batter's box in the first inning, and was easily thrown out at first to complete the double play. So instead of a run scoring in the Mets up,
is that the break the Brewers need? I mean, something like that.
You could argue it doesn't end up mattering because they win by 2 runs, but in the moment, I said absolutely, because of course Jackson Chourio then leads off the bottom of the first.
Frankie Montas was not exactly inducing confidence in the lads and lasses at American Family Field on Wednesday night at that particular point in time. So you never know. Like, those little breaks that you want to go your way, and that one did.
Yeah, I mean, Adames had a couple slick plays in the field. There was another ball that hit opening up the seventh. I don't remember who hit it, but Jared Koenig hit it first. It was a comebacker, and Adames kind of had to go get a slower rolling ball and turn that into an out. That might have been Nimmo, pretty fast runner. So he made a couple big defensive plays and did get that hit. It was his first hit of the series. But up to that point, Adames had an over. Rhys Hoskins hasn't gotten you anything other than he got hit by a pitch with the bases loaded in game one. Contreras, like you said, does have a couple hits, but it was grounded into a double play too. Like he has had chances to do more. Right now, it's Jackson Chourio, it's Bryce Harang, who has 5 hits in this series, and it's a couple breaks maybe here and there, and they that's what's been driving the offense. So there's more to give. It's Jose Quintana on Thursday, noted Brewers killer, but not lately. Jose Quintana hasn't even gotten a win against the Brewers since 2019.
Yeah, I feel like he's as much like just like the Brewers.
He's a boogeyman,
constant movie villain. Like he's just the guy, and he's whatever. I'm not like uber familiar with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though I've watched I think all of them. Whatever the villain is, who's always there, that's just who he is. And he didn't look bad in that start against them on what's that Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
The Brewers had a pretty good approach against him, waited him out a little bit, but like he was carving a little bit. So yeah, I mean, you figure the Mets have the starting pitching advantage going into that one. But as we saw, JR, the bullpen is actually pretty good. And Tobias Myers is theoretically the starter. Pat Murphy said he was going to start game 3. He will probably pitch in some capacity, but I think this is going to be chaos from the Brewers pitching staff for sure. Aaron Ashby, get back on the horse. Yoel Payamps available for 3 days in a row if we need you. Although it was dicey again for him on Wednesday night, so maybe at the back of the horse. Like if there's mud being flung everywhere and you got to throw someone.
It's a no for me on Yoel Payamps, maybe.
Hey, he figured he got it going by the end of that outing. That sinker to Iglesias was nasty.
Truly nasty.
I said, OMG, what a sinker.
Got it. Stranded, the bases loaded, and thank goodness, because that could have been a bad moment as well. Jose Iglesias has it's up to 20. If we're counting the playoffs, that's a 24-game hitting streak. So that's not an easy out. Big moment in the game 2, of course. We'll talk about his game 1 implosion. Quintana, by the way, 35 years old. Yeah, he could still carve a little bit, but I still think the Brewers have to feel good about being here. Having just seen him, having had some success, beaten him twice this year. He's a lefty, so that's always a little concerning, but I do think the Brewers should feel like they have a shot here. I imagine the Mets are going to do something similar.
I mean, there can certainly be an advantage to being the team who knows going in that your pitcher needs to get out of there as soon as he has to. Like the hook is quick, everyone's on deck. Like you could get burned a little bit by keeping, a veteran starter in longer than in the playoffs. That could be the 3rd or 4th inning. That in the regular season, that's like the 6th inning, but that could be the 3rd or 4th inning in the playoffs. I thought they might have kept Manaea in a little too long today. It didn't like super burn them, but letting him see Chourio a 3rd time and Perkins a 3rd time, they both had pretty good at bats against him. I think you saw him 3rd time, right? Yeah, Perkins got the sac fly against Manaea.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
I believe so. And then did Contreras face him, or did they pull him before that? I think he finished the inning.
It was a fresh inning for
either way, like that was probably something to the Brewers' advantage. Like a decently rested bullpen for that game, and a 3rd time through Manaea, who was fine but not great. I would have loved that but Carlos Mendoza seems to be letting his starters ride a little more. So,
which like you,
we'll see. Go ahead.
I mean, I would agree with that process in any other phase of the postseason, but not in the best of 3 when every game is so crucial. And it brings me now to how the Brewers have done this, where they have relied heavily on their bullpen. Joe Ross had a really nice outing on game 2.
We got to talk about Joe Ross.
We do, and we'll get there. But in general, we spoke about this going in. would it not make sense to have your starters go 4 innings and let the bullpen do the rest? I do think that was a formula for success. The Brewers have adhered to that. I mean, Frankie Montas, I don't think was going to make it further into the game anyway, but he was taken out with 2 outs in the 4th. So he gets 11 outs and nothing more. And then the Brewers go to Trevor McGill early. This is what necessitated Joe
Big
Ross on the
stuff.
back
Yeah,
end.
you got to give Pat Murphy his flowers on that one.
Absolutely the right call. McGill got them 4 outs, got them energized. I mean, he was
specifically
very
because it's Francisco Lindor too. Like that's early to go to McGill. It is, but it's absolutely the right spot, and he's the right guy for that spot too.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
while we're at it, JR. I mean, this is game 1, so we're going back a little bit. We should probably talk about the decision to pull Freddy Peralta.
Well, that's where I'm headed with this. Like, again, that was part of the 4 innings and out made sense to us. But of course, there's some controversy with that because Freddy Peralta threw 4 innings in game 1. 3 of them were excellent. There were 1, 2, 3 innings. The other one was not. He gave up a couple runs. And then he still had that bottom third of the order for a second time. If he wanted it in the 5th inning, if the Brewers wanted it, they pulled him. Not only did they pull him, raising a controversy when the 5th inning was a meltdown of epic proportions, and the Brewers ended up losing the lead, losing by 4 runs. Freddie was not happy. Like after the game, it felt like there was some contention. I mean, just Freddie wasn't happy about it. Willie Adames wasn't happy about it.
It hurt him. It hurt him. He took it very personally.
I mean, I would keep an eye on that because, you don't want to see that sort of division from a clubhouse that has seemed so connected all year long. But also, it obviously it didn't work out results wise. Process wise, I think it makes sense. Like Freddy Peralta, just the deeper you get in the game, the more you're playing with fire. He is not a pitcher that you could just see, oh, he's on. He's going to be on for the next 5 innings. He could be on in the 4th and really off in the 5th. This is just how he rolls. And I think Pat Murphy stuck by the plan. They even got a lead. It was like, now it's time to turn it over to the bullpen right here in the 5th inning and go from there. And it blew up in his face, but I think it was right?
The process was, I think, still pretty solid. I mean, we sat on these very airwaves, JR, and said, under no circumstances does anyone get the 3rd time through.
No
and
third
so,
time.
Like, I can
but that's the thing. It wasn't yet the 3rd time.
I could see an argument for letting Freddie finish that inning or go out for the 5th. He got the lead. He's your guy. I totally get that. And he looked pretty good against those guys. And Marte had hit him hard for like a sac fly, but he had looked good against those guys earlier. They're their worst hitters. Maybe there's a way through. I just think ultimately that the process was good. Yoel Payams has been incredible to finish the regular season. He has looked much different in the playoffs. Although I felt like, he got dinked and dunked a little bit on what night? Game 2. That's what we just watched. Game 2. Yeah,
that's right.
And there was an intentional
Game 1 were
walk
Rockets.
An intentional walk to face Iglesias, which made the situation look worse than it probably actually was. So, I mean, like you can. It doesn't take a PhD to map out how they were trying to get to the finish line there. You have Ashby and Kane available for those, lefty pockets with Nimmo. And Devin can go an inning plus. McGill gets the 8th, can come in the 7th. It lined up pretty well. The Brewers had a 1-run lead. The bullpen is their strength. We saw it in game 2. Bunch of nasty stuff from a bunch of dudes. I think they went for the aggressive move. Freddie, and here's the thing. Let's not act like Freddie is not volatile within starts. I mean, everyone saw his 5th inning ERA. We pointed to that. I wrote about it in his last start in Pittsburgh when he started struggling in the 5th. It's like, this is kind of how it happens. Like, it just comes out of nowhere. He just loses command. He gives up a home run. It comes and it goes with him very quickly. And so, sure, he was relatively cruising up until that point. He had retired 9 straight. But who knows? Maybe he walks Marte. Maybe he walks the next guy. Like, sure, he probably covers first base. He probably doesn't forget that. And it almost like 99% chance that inning does not end up as bad as it did. But the process was not. We've critiqued, been very critical of a lot of Pat Murphy's decisions. That one did not seem like a bad one.
No. I am with you on that. I understand why people were frustrated. I understand why that becomes a referendum on analytics or whatever. But like at some point, analytics are just data that tells you what's going to happen. Freddie Peralta
Right.
all
And
season long has been bad in
yeah,
the fifth inning. He's just been terrible.
Freddie is their guy as the number one. But this is not 2022 Corbin Burns.
No,
This is
you
not
don't need to
Brandon
get.
Woodruff at his best. Like Freddie can be great, but he also was really bad in the fifth inning. So,
Yeah.
and he was getting up there in pitches too. Like he had worked a lot. So, yeah, Murph was fairly defensive. I felt like after that game, and I guess wouldn't defend your decision, do what you need to be. But so that struck me as a bit interesting as well. But
Well, it ties in with how the players responded. And again, like winning cures all
ultimately,
ills.
cover first
Everybody's,
base.
yeah,
We could
they
be
were in
having a
position to get
totally
out of the
different
inning.
podcast right now, and maybe we will tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow at this time we'll be having the podcast we thought we were going to be having now, which is how can
A
this keep
misery session.
happening? Yeah,
Mhm.
like how does Frankie dropping the ball at first base keep happening? Like how do these series of events from players that have no connection other than wearing the same jersey over the last 7 years? Trent Grisham never played with you old pie amps. Brent Suter never played with I don't know who messed up last year. Well, Brent Suter did play with Corbin Burns, but the point Brent Suter wasn't on that team when Corbin Burns. Like you get the point. Like the playoff calamities just happened to this uniform, which is what made Wednesday night's win in Game 2 so potentially exhilarating. Like, did they eradicate the demons? They got to win
It
another one, but boy, oh boy, did it feel like it was a totally different building.
yeah, it's a good it's important to kind of not lose sight because on Tuesday night, it felt like the world was absolutely caving in. I thought in the clubhouse afterwards, it felt like a morgue. Like everybody felt really down, just as they did last year. Going into game two, it felt like everybody thought it was over. And then that it was over, you know? So I obviously when you lose a game like that, the stakes are pretty significant and it's a pretty grave situation, but there didn't feel like a lot of hope after game one. After game two, I mean, it's a party, right? And now it feels like they're going to win the series because they've got all, the quote unquote momentum. It's important to remember baseball does not behave this way.
No,
So it does not matter how bad it is or how great it is. Tomorrow's game is going to follow a completely different path.
yeah,
I I wonder, Curt, you mentioned you briefly asked who screwed it up last year. I wonder if Pat Murphy in the back of his head is thinking about last year's series against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Freddie Peralta had allowed one run on a home run with 2 outs in
yeah.
the fifth. He was
They
looking good. They
they
sent him out
very
for the sixth.
clearly,
He
yeah.
goes walk, double, single. The game, the Diamondbacks now lead. They're in trouble. Those runners end up scoring later, and the game turns because Freddie Peralta stayed in too long. I wonder if this was Pat Murphy getting ahead of that, maybe. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, people like it's funny. I saw people call it like he was being counsel and overthinking. And I was like, do do we not remember this the same? How many times did counsel leave Corbin Burns in too long during the regular season? It was like he had this short leash with most of those guys in the regular season, and then Corbin Burns. It was like, yeah, seventh, sixth inning, three guys on. You can't find the strike zone. That's okay. Work your way out of it, Corbin. Like it was baffling to me in that regard, but it was the opposite of the council decision last year. He left Freddie in too long, objectively too long. He probably shouldn't have gone out for the sixth. Go to your bullpen, dude. You
Yeah.
got a good one. So yeah, like look, and this was let's be clear, this was not just a Pat Murphy decision.
No, it never is.
They had this thing lined up. They're he's not alone in making these calls. Chris Hook's involved, Walker McKinven's involved, like Jim Henderson's like this whole staff is responsible with. They're not just putting like, that would be way too much probably in this era of baseball to put on Murph's plate, of making these decisions fully by himself. And honestly, like front office too. Do you think we don't? Do we think they don't go over this stuff in meetings? No, of course not. Murph's aware of all the numbers, so even to the point of like he's done this. He did this earlier in the year in a Joe Ross start in Pittsburgh, actually, where he pointed to a specific like range of numbers, like 5 to 10 pitches, where the stuff falls off precipitously. There was a game in Pittsburgh in April where Joe Ross got pulled. Hobie Milner came in. Joe Ross was kind of cruising, and then it went downhill fast. But they pointed to the same thing that they pointed to after game one, which is like at this point, Freddy Peralta's pitches stopped being as effective. So I think that's interesting too. Maybe we haven't paid enough attention to that, like as a baseball community, instead of just like focusing on the third time through. Put a post-it note down, JR. Let's look into that this offseason.
All that you're saying makes sense to me. It's just then I don't really know why the player was maybe out of the loop. Why is Freddy Peralta so upset about that? If he wasn't at least
because
considering the
I get
possibility.
it from him. I get it. You're the guy. You're the ace.
Yeah.
They traded Corbin and told you you're the ace. You're a competitor. You don't want to go out of there. Like, and if they had, look, if UL Payams had covered first, Freddy Peralta would have been a good soldier and said, no, I wanted to stay in, but that's not my decision.
Mm-hmm.
So
and it worked out, and we're all happy, right? Because of course we haven't actually said it, but of course I don't think Brewers fans need a reminder at this point. Yoel Payams fails to cover first base with 2 outs. That allows the tying run to score on the play. The I almost said the Diamondbacks. The Mets continue to add on 4 more runs after that point. Jackson Chourio dropped lost a ball in the lights briefly, a line drive earlier in the inning.
In the sun, in the windows.
Old friend Tyrone Taylor responsible for that one. This is one batter after he stole a home run away from Starling Marte, did Jackson Chourio. So one great play, one iffy play. But
can we believe these playoffs that Jackson Chourio is having? It's been 2 games, and he's done already more than 95% of the players in this franchise's history in the playoffs. We wrote a nice little story about who's going to be the unlikely playoff heroes this year. Like, it's Jackson Chourio.
It's just Jackson Chourio. I'm trying to think.
No disrespect to playoff Joe Ross, who 100% is the unlikely playoff hero right now. Bullpen Joe Ross.
Yes,
JR, I would say you will be telling your kids about this, but your son is probably like buying a Joe Ross jersey already.
Curt, let's pull back the curtain just slightly for our listeners, because I feel like they trust us. They know how we are. We're sitting next to each other this game. When Joe Ross checked into the game, whose name did we say?
We were talking about Polish sausages, and there was a natural connection to a Polish flamethrower.
There was a Polish won the sausage race in game 2 after taking a nasty fall, thinking he was going to win in game 1. And that brought us to yes, like you said, Mr. Jacob Mizorowski. We were thinking,
I can't believe you put his name in this podcast. I cannot.
This would be a good spot. If he is my Keston Hira, I'm happy to be that guy. That's totally fine.
That's fine. Except he's like going to be actually good theoretically. Yeah, okay. Yes. While we're on this topic, I just couldn't help but sitting there like all day on game 2, leading up to it and during it. Like, why didn't they bullpen day this? It felt like that made a ton of sense for me. And also a reason why you want to carry 13 pitchers. I thought they'd carry 13 pitchers. That's the only thing we got wrong on our playoff prediction was we had Hudson as the 13th pitcher, and they chose to not carry that extra lefty and go with, Sal Frelick, basically. Sal Frelick.
Well, but Isaac Collins, who has not appeared in this series.
Yeah, with Isaac. We had Isaac Collins on there, but if Sal Frelick had been healthy, I would have assumed Hudson gets that spot instead of Collins. But he's there to pinch. He's there to pinch run. Like if Reese Hoskins singles in the 8th inning, they'll pinch run for him. It felt like it would have been a good bullpen game. Like your starter's only going to get you 11 outs anyway. DL Hall's available. You could start Jared Koenig. You could like Nick Mears. Nick Mears could have not gone for 4 outs. I mean, Nick Mears was available in this game. He was warming at some point. So I just didn't get it. I did not get throwing Montas out there for 11 outs when you've got options.
Well, Montas wasn't great. I mean, I think that's part of it. I imagine they thought they could get him through at least 4 innings. I would also say that DL Hall
did they?
What
did you have going in on Frankie?
I said that out loud, and now you're right.
4 innings with like no runs or one run.
DL Hall's value here, again, why they went with 12 pitchers, I don't know. Like, there's a moment here where Jackson Chourio homers and it's tied at 3, and you think this game could be headed to extras. Remember, there's no ghost runner at second base, or whatever the terminology is you use to describe that runner. So now
That
you
would have
need
been
DL
DL
Hall
Hall.
for
Well,
a
it could be
while.
Tobias Myers too. You just put everything you have
100%.
at this game.
Yes, but you also are hoping to get to game 3 with DL Hall, the perfect complement as a multi-inning option to Tobias Myers, righty lefty. So I imagine you'll see both of them. You'll see Nick Mears. You'll see McGill and
I
Williams at
would
the
like
back
to
end.
see Jared Koenig start the game.
He has done that 6 times this year. Why not?
I mean, Pat Murphy announced Tobias Myers as the starter, but like, are we sure? Like, am I stupid? Do I misremember Jared Koenig starting in this exact same situation against this exact same opponent in the game where they were trying to line Tobias Myers up for what it could look like? Maybe, and I'm an idiot, and it didn't actually happen like that.
Let's talk about that. That was a Saturday game in which Jose Quintana started. You had Jared Koenig and then 4 brilliant innings from Tobias Myers, the A bullpen from there, 6-0 victory. Tell me that's not what you want exactly to happen on Thursday. It lines up perfectly.
Can we get Eric Haas in the lineup too while we're at it?
He hasn't played either, has he?
We spent months anticipating the Gary or the Reese moment, and buddy, let me tell you, I did not get those vibes at any point in the game. Which of course all that matters is the vibes. I don't know if we've ever mentioned that.
We do like vibes.
It's a vibes podcast. The vibes on Jackson Chourio. What did I say to you when Jackson Chourio came up to bat in the 8th?
You said he's gonna hit another homer, I believe.
I said he's gonna do something, I think.
Well, I interpreted that as another homer because I guess triple would work.
Yeah, sure. The good news is, of course, I figured they were going to win the whole time. Obviously,
I've never seen someone wearing a Brewers uniform want the moment that badly. Just live for that moment. Oh, sorry. Since Ryan Braun was in his absolute heyday.
Yeah, it's Ryan Braun. It's Ryan Braun.
Mm-hmm. He struck out in a lot of big moments too, as will Jackson Chourio, of course. But
of course, Chourio's gonna someone else is gonna have to do something if this thing's gonna go on for a while. But holy smokes, I feel like this win might take off some of the sting of if they lose this game 3, right? I don't know. I'm trying to gauge.
Yes.
Gauge the barometric pressure here.
Consider if they had lost, that would be 11 playoff losses in 12 games.
This absolutely changes it. Maybe not a ton, but it changes it enough to where it's like, okay, that was not the worst thing I've ever seen.
They showed life.
Which is where the bar has been since Game 6 of 2018. That's where the bar has been.
I mean, I think if they lose this series, it greatly diminishes what you saw on Wednesday night. That's just sort of a footnote. It's not one of the greatest games in Brewers history.
Yeah, but it does. Winning that game is important for. Well, I think you're right. It was important for psyches for about 24 hours. We'll see how people are feeling when the daunt comes back in Game 3.
Yes, the daunt. We've said a lot. We've said the word daunt probably more than we thought we would coming into this.
JR, I might be on a flight in like
48 hours.
30 hours.
Yeah.
No, 30 hours. Yeah. Like early morning Friday.
The Brewers would play
I really
could have
used a Braves comeback today.
The Brewers would have played at 2 o'clock. In that case, instead it's 6 o'clock. All 3 of the other series were over in 2 games. There have been 11 series in which, during this format, which was formally adopted in 2022, 11 wildcard series, all of them except for one went to a 3rd game. The Brewers would be the second of those, the 12th series. In all 11 cases, 11-0. The team that won game 1 won the series. 11-0. The Brewers would be the first.
How many game 3s have there been? The Padres and Mets did it.
It's just one. That's it.
All
the others.
Everything last year was all a sweep. Yeah,
now this is a little misleading because 2020, of course, had this.
No. 2020 didn't happen. That year was not real.
There were 8 series.
Now
Six
Nope.
of those,
Nope.
six of those
Nope.
were also over 2-0.
Nope.
Six of
Nope.
them were
Didn't.
2-0.
That
There
was
was
fake
one,
baseball.
the other two, the team that lost
I saw
game
Eric
one.
Yardley pitch in a playoff game. Ryan
You
Healy
did.
hit cleanup. Miss me with that was miss me with that Mickey Mouse stuff.
Did someone say Jed Jerko?
I asked a player the other day. I was like, the Dodgers title wasn't real, right? And they were like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, never mind. Sorry. I thought you were going to be in the same boat as me, but I guess we're not.
Truly, one of the great ironies of modern baseball is that these formats have created so much randomness, made it so difficult for the best teams to truly rise to the top. And yet in 2020, when literally every team had to play a best of 3 series to even, and then it was all just extremely crazy sporadic. No one played a full season. It was the 2 best teams that made it to the World Series, and the best one won. That's wild to me. It was Rays Dodgers, of course. Dodgers win the World Series. It was a weird one, but I think
Remember
it
Mike
counts. We're the
Brasso?
best team. No. Oh, I don't.
Why don't
Was
you
he a
remember Mike
Brewer?
Brasso?
I remember Mike Brasso. Of course I do. Awesome dude. Indiana guy.
He was in the elite tier of dudes. Also, shout out to Tyrone Taylor. This
Oh, what
guy,
a dude.
like I don't know how much we've talked about Tyrone Taylor, but yeah, awesome guy.
Just
A
tell him.
tier,
Tell
A
the
tier
people
baseball.
why.
Well, I mean, Tyrone and I, like, we always got to talking. It's just like on a human level when he was here about being dads and dad life and like being on the road, and ran into him before game one. Just saw him really briefly. He was going into to hit and said hi, what's up? He asked how dad life was. I said it's going,
It's
as
a
I'm sure it
thing.
is for him with his daughter Sage. And then he asked how Emma was doing, and he remembered
Remembered her
Emma's
name.
name, and so that was cool. Just to just like the human side of it. And Tyrone Taylor, awesome dude. Everyone on the Brewers loves him. Fans love him. They've been cheering for him. Jesse Winker, not so much, but Tyrone Taylor, yeah. He's been one of the best dudes to come through that clubhouse, and they've had a lot of good guys like Mike Brasso we just mentioned. But
So good.
yeah, shout out to Tyrone Taylor.
I can't name all of my current coworkers' children. I'm pretty good at it, but there's still a lot of names I'm a little fuzzy
That's your
on.
name. I
Tyrone
could have
Taylor,
named my current children's names.
yeah, well, sometimes that's true. Tyrone Taylor doesn't even work with you anymore, and he remembers your kid's name. That's pretty sweet. I love that. Let's talk about Jesse Winker before we shut this thing down. Holy smokes, Jesse Winker. He gets in the lineup in game one. He hits a 2-run triple and scores a run himself to make it the first 3 runs for the New York Mets. He had some things to say to Willy Adames afterwards. Very chatty. A lot of F-bombs were involved. John Boy broke it down if you want to see it.
I think John Boy was spot on most of this one.
It got Willy Adames really upset, and I just didn't understand it because my recollection, my understanding was that Jesse Winker was a pretty good teammate, which was fine. I think he was kind of a quieter guy, seemingly, but I could be wrong about that too.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Like Jesse Winker, let's pull back the curtain a little here. He worked very hard in this clubhouse to shed the label that was placed on him as bad teammate, bad clubhouse guy in Seattle, which by all accounts didn't seem like he was a great clubhouse guy. So he worked very hard on that, both with his teammates and with the media in his time in Milwaukee. Like in spring training, he was in the middle of every conversation. The players loved him. I mean, like ultimately, like even through it all, it was still the Wink Show experience. Like it's still a Jesse Winker experience, but it. I don't want to say he was disliked in the Milwaukee clubhouse. I don't think that's the
Sure.
case at all. But I do think that it when the performance isn't working, it can leave you with a sour taste.
Okay.
And that's I think like look at Pittsburgh with Rowdy this year, and that might have been what they experienced early on. Um, with him. Like it's just it's a different cat. It's the Wink Show, and yeah, Willie probably maybe didn't love the guy. Like
Yeah.
he certainly is a fiery competitor, and like when it's going well, he's gonna talk.
Well, he's got long hair now, so this is Bizarro Jesse Winker, and
I
he's a
did
much better
shake
player
his
too.
I did shake his hand before game two. I saw him by the batting cage and said, welcome back to Milwaukee. Here's a warm welcome for you." And he said, "Thank you."
There were no F-bombs exchanged, is what you're saying.
And he did not tell me to meet him in the parking lot. A lot of parking lot stuff. I mean, this is great for the tailgate culture, the parking lot culture. Tommy Pham, the tough guy, hoorah.
Mm.
He challenged the Brewers in the parking lot. So yeah, I'm all for it. Let's meet up in the parking lots.
Jesse Winker made the final out in game 2, that fly ball that landed in the glove of who else? Jackson Chourio, that tied the series at 1. So it all comes down to Thursday,
Ooh,
where the Brewers
I'm
and Mets
yawning.
will meet. Yeah, me too. It's time to wrap this up. We will pod again. We will talk about what's to come after this game 3. Possibly good news, possibly bad. We'll find out within 24 hours here, and we will see what we can find. What rando is going to step up, Curt? What rando are we going to be talking about tomorrow? Who do you think? Is it just Jackson Chourio again?
Now I was gonna say Jake Bauers, but I think Blake Perkins is in the lineup, which means Garrett Mitchell is DHing, unless they want Frelick off his feet, which means either way, no Jake Bauers. So it's got to be a pitcher. Name a pitcher. Aaron Savali.
Aaron Savali. Let's do it. Let's say Aaron Savali. He's your rando of the night.
Get Eric
game
Haas in the lineup, you cowards. Oh no, they're facing a lefty. So
Yes.
definitely no Jake Bauers.
And maybe no Garrett Mitchell.
Eric Haas in the lineup.
Let's go.
cowards.
Let's see it.
Do it.
We changed our mind. Rando of the game is Eric Haas. He needs to get into one of these games. Okay, we'll be back with you again very soon. Thanks for listening to this special edition of Microbrew. Enjoy the game if you can, if that's the thing that you are capable of doing when it comes down to this
I
stage.
will enjoy it with ice cream and a cup of soda.
And good company sitting next to you talking about Jacob Mizrowski at some point, even though I have no choice but to admit it worked out. They had a really good bullpen game. I can't.
Cut him off.
Cut him off. It's over. We'll talk to you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.